Okay, good evening. I would like to call to order the Infrastructure Committee meeting for Wednesday, May the 9th for the Town of Lincoln. Roll call. All committee members are present. Joining us this evening, Dave Graham, our Director of Public Works, Julie Kirkless, Acting Director of Corporate Services, and Jillian Harris, our Manager of Environmental Services. Thank you all. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, do any members have any changes to the order of business detailed in the agenda? At this point, I would like to call Jillian Harris, Manager of Environmental Services, to provide us an update on the Jordan and Camden II study.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone. I'd just like to go over the Jordan and Camden I&I study update that we've been working on for the past year. So the agenda is to give a little bit of I&I 101, provide an overview of the Jordan and Camden study findings, go over the recommendations from the study, and identify the next steps. So inflow and infiltration is also known as extraneous flow, or I&I. It's clean stormwater or groundwater that enters the sanitary sewer system, and I&I ultimately takes up valuable space in the sanitary system and causes sewer backup, flooding of our pumping stations in the area, overflows to the environment. It's also costly to treat these flows and costly to repair the after effects resulting from flooding. So I'd like to spend some time on this slide to go over the primary sources of I&I, which include just briefly going over downspouts, foundation drains, cross connections, uncapped cleanouts, broken sewer laterals, misaligned lateral connections, cracked broken pipes, and leaky maintenance holes. So now I'm going to go over to the image that we have on the right and go over them one by one and identify some of them that are of concern within the Jordan and Camden area. The majority of the homes within the area do have their roof drain connection. I don't know if so the roof drain connections to our sanitary system right now, we do have means to identify which homes are located, but it is estimated over 100 at this time, probably closer to 200 homes between the two communities. Next, we also have a significant amount of foundation drain and sump pump and cisterns included. So this is through a similar line that would have gone around. And while we can make it fairly clear that it is connected just by going near the area and hearing the pumps turning on and off within the sanitary system, we also can do other testing to confirm which homes are connected through these sump pumps, foundation drains, and cistern overflows. Cross connections can be a little bit difficult to prove, and quite honestly, I don't think it is as much of a concern. The one location where we might be seeing some areas would be on Prince William, where the storm sewers were installed. And we can again check that out through some simple testing as well, which would be done while we're doing other planned testing, which I'll go over later in the presentation. So this would be through our storm sewer grates that are along the road. The uncapped cleanouts that we have within the surface area, this is one that was a major concern within the Camden area, and I'll go over some of the benefits of identifying these uncapped cleanouts and resolving these issues. It's really a low-hanging fruit and a big win when we do find these locations. These are actually on normal residential properties a lot easier to discover because they're at the surface level. It's a little more difficult if there are any within the field areas. Broken sewer laterals is also a major source of I&I in a lot of older communities. It's especially difficult where we have trees over top of our sewer laterals. This can actually push down sections of pipe and cause some breakage. We do have some throughout the community. We actually have, I think, 6 to repair in other parts of the town this spring. To resolve some of these issues. And later on in the agenda, we're also going to be going over an option forward for fixing some of the sewer laterals on the private side as well. In line with the broken sewer laterals and the trees is the misaligned lateral connections. This can happen right at where it's coming into the existing sanitary sewer, or it can have some misaligned joints as well over the run of the lateral itself. And going in line with cracked and broken pipes, this could be anywhere from the lateral, any of our connected foundation drains, roof drain connections, also just bringing in some additional water within the system. And lastly, leaky maintenance holes within this area. So ultimately, our cracked and broken pipes within our existing sanitary sewer and our leaky manholes are all on the town's property, and all other concerns are primarily on the private property, and those are the ones that are the most difficult to tackle and the most difficult to identify without having a focused program. So moving forward, I just wanted to go over our current interim measures that we have right now to protect the residents within Jordan Station and Camden. We do have a flow monitoring program that is in place. The flow monitors are actually being installed, and we will be monitoring over 4 months just to identify the actual total amount of wet weather flow, which would be the I&I flow that is entering the system. We're also maintaining communication with the region regularly regarding the water levels. We have requested that the region set a lower high-level alarm and notify us in advance. If we know a storm's coming, we also call the Grimsby treatment or Baker Road treatment plant to find out what the levels are at and check back every half hour to an hour as we see the storm coming in. We also will be obtaining access to their SCADA program so that we can monitor ourselves at these locations. And we're working with another company that has some smart technology that can put a level sensor on the top of the manhole. We're going to be doing a pilot program, which is they offer for free, to see how well this would work within our community, and it would give us further advanced warning for these water levels as we're rolling out our program to deal with the wet weather flow and to protect the residents. And of course, the most important one that provides us some additional capacity is we are working very closely with the region for the Bridgeport pumping station improvements. We had a conference, Matt Bruder and I from planning had a conference call with both planning and engineering last week, and I touched base with the region's project manager for this project, and she's currently drafting the terms of reference for the consulting agreement. And we've actually moved up the planned construction from 2022 to 2020 with hopes that we can possibly even get it moved up a little bit more. But there are some constraints related to permitting and the design side that kind of limit how much further ahead we can push it. So our primary study findings, there are 3 townside sources of I&I. These are in 2 maintenance holes and 1 service connection location. We will be putting out a invitation or request for quotation from contractors to repair these this year, and that will alleviate the townside sources of I&I. Then there's significant clear flow from private. So for roof leaders, it's 28 suspected properties within Camden, 62 suspected properties in Jordan Station, and it's anticipated that when we complete some further testing, that these numbers are going to increase. There's also there was surveys completed during the study requesting residents to inform us if they have known foundation drains, sump pumps, or cistern overflows, and there was a significant amount that identified that yes, they did indeed, or presume that their foundation drains, sump pumps, or cistern overflows are connected. I should note that there are minimal cisterns in this location purely because they're serviced by our water system. The recommendations that were brought forward in the report were sewer maintenance hole rehabilitation, so address our leaky defects within the town system. As was noted, we're going to be moving forward with these repairs this year. Also to do a 2-phase private storm disconnection pilot programs, first focusing on the roof leaders and then following up with foundation drains, sump pumps, and cisterns. This is purely from a financial standpoint, as there's significant financial cost to the foundation drains relative to the roof leaders. Moving forward would be to take a proactive measure to reduce I&I in new developments, which we are incorporating into our subdivision agreements. Moving forward, we do have a requirement that the developers, there will be post-flow monitoring, and if there are any concerns with I&I, that they have to go back in, the developer would have to go back in and camera the areas, laterals, the sewers, and any sources of I&I will need to be repaired prior to taking an assumption. This also included the revision of bylaw 0747, which is the water use bylaw, to incorporate the roof leader and foundation drain disconnections, and to ultimately, because there are costs to these, utilize the Niagara's combined sewer overflow cost sharing program. It's being revamped currently, but ultimately the funding will still be there for eliminating I&I within the systems. And one benefit to the town of Lincoln is that it's a focus with development within the communities as well, as part of the evaluation system. So our next steps from the town side, we're holding a public information center with the residents within Jordan and Camden in June. It would be at the fire hall within that location. We have booked the hall at this time, so we'll be sending out invites soon and just going over what was found and our plans moving forward. We'll also do a smoke test investigation. This is what I was talking about for the testing to identify where we have downspout disconnections. It's a very common practice. It's relatively an inexpensive form of testing and is very beneficial at showing where we do have the connections. We would again let the residents know when this is being completed. We'd also move forward with our sewer maintenance hole improvements, given that we do have a low amount. It's anticipated that it will be completed this year. If anything comes up while we do further testing, then that would be moved into our 2019 program. And looking at updating the disconnection, the bylaw 0747 in 2019, once we've progressed with these pilot programs and the new council is in session. The recommended public programs would be a voluntary downspout disconnection pilot program in September 2018, and then also having a second round of it in March 2019 with the foundation drain sump pump disconnect and cistern disconnection pilot program. We stated 2019 to 2022. The hope would be to have this completed in 2019, maybe going into 2020, just to help with that area, as both of these are going to help us reduce significant demands on that sanitary sewer connection. So our proposed downspout disconnection pilot program, currently our neighbors that have one in place are Hamilton, Grimsby, and St. Catharines. What this involves is including a rain barrel and all required connections. What these communities have done is they've done a 50-50 cost share for these rain barrels and everything that's required. It is, there's two companies available that we could partner with that have these, and what would happen is we could do either advanced ordering, or we could just have a truckload come to the area and the residents could pick them up just to make it easier to facilitate. There's also YouTube videos that show how to do the disconnection, and it actually is quite simple for the residents. We would be able to apply for Niagara Region CSO funding to help us offset the cost for these rain barrels. The approximate cost per barrel is $50, so we'd be looking at a $25 investment from the town per downspout and a $25 investment from the resident, and a portion of our $25 would be covered as part of the CSO funding. It saves approximately 5,000 liters from entering the system each summer per household, which is a significant amount of water. This is just a general amount over southern Ontario that would be found. Obviously, it depends upon the size of the house and the overall roof footprint and how efficient their eaves troughs are, but it is around that 5,000 liter ballpark. And for the pilot program, it would be for the study area only right now, so the Jordan Station and Camden area, with hopes to bring this forward to the remainder of the town after a hopeful successful pilot program. And I just wanted to note that we were planning on bringing this forward at the next infrastructure committee for approval. So I guess, are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Jillian, for your presentation. Committee members, open it up for discussion, questions. Councillor McMillan.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. On the last slide, you were talking about the disconnect of the downspout, and it's $50 per downspout, which would be charged back to the resident. Is that correct?
No, so the $50 would be the total cost of the rain barrel from the companies. They try to market it around $50. And what we'd be looking at is the total, so that would be the total cost, and then we'd cost share. So it'd be $25 for the resident, and then $25 as a town investment.
But they could have more than one downspout?
Yes.
They could be connected. Like my house has 4, but it doesn't, we're not connected to the sewer or
Yeah.
a downspout in any way.
Yeah, when we've actually already applied for regional funding in anticipation, we noted that it would still have to be approved, and we anticipated 4 downspouts per house.
So it's going to be $25 per then?
Per downspout, so
Okay.
looking at the average of 4, it would be $100 per resident.
Yeah, that's a bargain. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Easton.
Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you very much, Jillian. The report's getting more and more comprehensive, which is really good to see. Could you just give us a bit more information on the misaligned laterals?
Yep, so misaligned laterals could either be a result of poor construction back in the day, settling options, or a big common one is tree roots that end up pushing things. So what happened is that how pipes are designed is that they'll have a joint, and there will be another joint that will fit in like this on the pipe. And what can happen is that you can have one portion that will drop down, and there is some space in it that's just kind of pushed together. And it's not uncommon in older areas where this will come about. We'll be talking about it again a bit later in the service line warranty section, but it just allows a significant amount of water to come in because it is offset. Essentially, it's like a separating or a dropping of the pipe. So you have 2 sides open for it to drain, and ultimately that's anything that's running through that lateral can also go into the environment. So it's both a concern from an I&I standpoint into the system, but it's also a concern for potential sewage to enter the environment as well.
So I guess those reasons, they're all very straightforward, but they're not, it doesn't sound like they're anything that we would have a remedial program for.
We don't have, on the private side right now, we don't have any programs in place. On the public side, if we are noted by the resident or the property owner that there are some concerns, we'll go out and we'll camera both sides. We'll camera both the private and the public side, and we will repair everything on the public side. And we do a handful a year in repairs. As I said, that we have 2 out for tender just because they're a little bit more difficult, and then our staff has also completed 3 so far this year.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, and thank you, Jillian, for the timely presentation. As you may or may not know, we're looking at a development down there in the Jordan Station area, and one of the hottest topics is the whole pumping station, and where we're going with that, because residents in the area are experiencing flooded basements, and so on. So it looks like this is a story to tell these residents in this particular development or in that whole Prince William area. How much, and maybe you can or cannot answer this, how much of the Bridgeport pumping station issue is this problem?
Thank you. Sorry, I've been saying this through you, Mr. Chairman. The pumping station has a firm capacity of 11 liters per second. There's 2 pumps, so we can pump at 22 liters per second. What is anticipated to be standard dry weather flow is around 9 liters per second. So we're looking at the majority, more than half of what is currently hitting the pumping station is rainwater and surface water. So it is a significant problem at this time. One thing to note about the development that's happening there, we have been working with the developer and they are aware that we need to have a remedy for the current situation, and the pumping station needs to be upgraded prior to them moving forward with their construction. It is known that it is a concern to the residents, and obviously we need to protect the existing homes within the area.
So that being the case, you said that the pumping station is to be moved up to 2020. So are you saying that the development will not happen until after 2020?
So what can happen is we can look at what the improvement is from wet weather flow. We'll continue monitoring that using flow monitoring. And if there is some space, it is a potential for some phasing, but they wouldn't be able to build out to capacity until that pumping station is completed.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So obviously we're going to need our good residents of both Camden and Jordan to act, to do something.
Yes.
And you referenced Hamilton and Grimsby and other St. Catharines locations. Do you know of their success rate in getting those residents to help with their own, with the issue?
Yes. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman. The Hamilton program was and continues to be a successful program. Grimsby, the first year that they ran it, they actually sold almost 1,500 rain barrels, which is significant uptake for that community. And St. Catharines had some apprehension for it. Typically, what has been found within those communities is that the rain barrel side, there is strong support and it is known. And talking with the residents that I have talked to within the Jordan station area, they know that they need to disconnect their downspouts, and it was even brought to them as a recommendation when talking with them. But the biggest one is the sump pump disconnection, because there is a significant cost associated with it and how to bring that forward. I will be talking with the parties in Hamilton, Grimsby, and St. Catharines when developing that program to figure out how they tweaked it and kind of how they perfected it to really get the uptake in those and kind of take advantage of their lessons learned with our program. But ultimately, the one thing that is said is that residents that know that there is a problem are more likely to come on board with these programs versus residents that have not had any flooding or any concerns with the excessive I&I in their areas.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just a couple more things. The new developments, do we make a change to eliminate downspouts being connected? Is that what you mean by changes to the building code?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So downspouts are no longer allowed to be connected to the sanitary system, nor are sump pumps or foundation drains. The change that we are making is a requirement relating to flow monitoring and holding the contractor or the developer responsible for the overall construction of the sanitary laterals and even the sewer pipes and manhole connections. And what has been found by the communities that have brought this forward, and we based our subdivision agreement clauses after, is that it's not a matter of enforcing it anymore. It's a matter of the workmanship has been brought up to what it should be. So that's where our changes have come in place. But anything that's been constructed more recently does not allow for downspouts to be connected or the sump pump or foundation drains.
And just finally, Mr. Chair, so for the PIC in June, will the format be a presentation, or will the format be simply walking around the room? And the reason I ask that is I would suggest that a presentation is much more powerful in communicating to the group what's going on, as opposed to people trying to walk around and figure it out.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can definitely sit down with you and go over that. We were planning on having a walk through, just because it allows some of the quieter residents to ask questions without having some hesitation that way. It is possible to do a hybrid as well. So we could set up the boards, but to ultimately do a presentation and then allow for a question and answer period after, if that would be preferred.
Yeah.
But I can definitely sit down with you and plan out an approach to go.
That'd be great. Through
to the
you,
residents.
Mr. Chair, yes, that I think based on the sensitivity of what's going on there now, we may want to look at that format. Thank you.
I have Councillor Patriva.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jillian, for your presentation. A couple questions. I assume that we'll use the Berolina method or something similar to repair our own cracked and broken sewer, storm sewer and sanitary sewers. But on the same side, and this kind of dovetails into Councillor McPherson's question and on his line. We're asking the residents here to be a part of this program. I think the town has a role to play in their own buildings in the area. Knowing the surface area of the arena, of the fire hall, thinking we could divert a heck of a lot of water and I'm not sure if there is direct connections, but I'm assuming there is based on the age of the buildings. Any thought of us tackling our buildings first or in conjunction with going out to the residents? Because only playing devil's advocate, people are going to say, you're asking us to do this. What are you doing to help the system? And knowing that it's rather contentious, I just think it would be a good idea if we took that first step and did it ourselves. And then also, we could integrate the redevelopment of Main Street and 19th Street when we do those works to get the corresponding commercial and business areas to do the same at the same time. Just thoughts on that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councillor. This has been discussed in meetings. What could be done is, I don't know offhand how many of our buildings might possibly have connections. I know newer buildings obviously wouldn't have the connection. In meetings going over redevelopments, we have looked at other LID, which is low impact development options for the redevelopment of that Main Street. I do plan on doing a presentation at a later date as well, just over some of the ideas that we could incorporate within the community as well. So it is something that is being considered. I completely agree with you that we can't ask the residents to do something if we're not doing something ourselves. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for, in the interim, any of the town's facilities that might be connected to also disconnect with rain barrels, in line with when we're asking the residents as well, so we could do it as part of that rain barrel program and purchase the barrels at that time as well to ensure that we are, and communicate that that is being done as well.
Yeah, I just think it would be, through you, Mr. Chairman, I just think it would be a good PR stunt because it will get people talking in advance of this. So, what are those? And by the town being proactive, I think you'll get a heck of a good buy-in. And like you said in Grimsby, 1,500 rain barrels, and they're constantly having sales and selling out.
Yes.
Knowing that that's a contentious issue, and this is how everyone can help solve the situation, I think it'd be a good idea. So thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. It was a great presentation. I love the thought process that's gone into it, looking at all the steps and looking at the issues where we have currently in Camden and Jordan, and identifying, those potential areas, bringing in the public component of the meeting, and then, looking for solutions moving forward. And I really like the idea that we're, going to work towards this rain barrel program and use it as a study area, and then hopefully adopt it through the entire municipality. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Patriva and seconded by Councillor McMillan that the presentation be received. Your pleasure in the motion? As carried. Thank you. We have some correspondence, Active Transportation Advisory Committee minutes for meetings of January, February, and March. Just a little sidebar. When we launched Active Transportation in the fall of 2016, it was determined at that point with the people that we had on the committee from staff that the minutes in 2017 flow through the planning department, and that's what did occur all through 2017. With some recent changes and some additions, and with our new clerk, we've had some correspondence, and now the minutes from Active Transportation are going to flow through infrastructure. So that's what you're seeing there is correspondence for the meeting minutes from the meetings of the first 3 months of 2018. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. Are there any questions to those minutes? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan and seconded by Councillor Patriva that the minutes of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of January 25th, February 22nd, and March 22nd, 2018 be received. Your pleasure in the motion. And that is carried. We have 3 reports this evening. The first report is PW 18-13, Service Line Warranties, Warranty Program for Water and Sewer Service Connection. Director Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If anyone has any questions, myself or Jillian be happy to answer any committee's inquiries. I'll just note that this was something that came up through committee, and we were, happy to look into this, and it's a really good program to move forward with. So,
Councillor Patriva.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank both Dave and Jillian for bringing this forward. We saw this last year at AMO at our small caucus lunch, and I thought it was something that was timely given last year, 2 years ago's winter and the frozen water services that we had. And just thank you so much for bringing this, because I think this is affordable peace of mind for our residents.
Absolutely. I took place in that luncheon meeting, and it was great information, so I'm glad to see the staff has brought that forward as well. Seeing no other comments, no other questions, we have a motion moved by Councillor Patriva and seconded by Councillor McMillan that report PW 18-13 Service Line Warranties, Warranty Program for Water and Sewer Service Connections be received as information, and that the firm of Service Line Warranties be retained to market and provide optional private buried water and sewer infrastructure warranty coverage to the residents of Lincoln, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal the contract documents on behalf of the municipality. Your pleasure on the motion. That is carried. The next report this evening is PW 18-15, Sandy Cove Road Allowance.
I'm here as the legal representative of Martin Begzo with the
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members regarding the report? No questions? I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor McMillan that staff be instructed to complete the land transfer of Part 2 in the reference plan in Appendix A so that the given road allowance within the subject lands at 4662 Sandy Cove Road be conveyed to the town as per the information included in this report. That the town pay the total cost of legal fees and surveyor work requiring to complete the land transfer amounting to $8,481. Your pleasure on the motion? And that is carried. Our final report this evening is PW 18-16, the Regional CSO Program Funding Information Update. Are there any questions from committee members on the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor McMillan that report PW 18-16, the Regional CSO Program Funding Report Update, be received. Your pleasure on the motion. And that is carried. Councillor Pachariva's favorite point, Councillor inquiries. Councillor Pachariva.
Thanks, Chair. Renee, we were chatting yesterday just about an inquiry we had at the planning meeting back to the development that's happening on my brother's old property with Lozani. And Mr. Garula that was here and was supposed to be contacted by Mr. blonde-haired fellow. I can't remember his name, but he assured them to this date he has still not been contacted on the plan to get that water off of the new development and through that creek beside his house.
The consultant from the same.
I told him, I'm coming tonight. I'll raise it again Monday, but I know Jillian was going to be here tonight. So just to get it on your guys' radar again to say to planning, come on, we got to ratchet this up and get an answer. So appreciate it.
Any other inquiries? Councillor McPherson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So 13th Street EA. So my question is, where are we today, and what can we expect to happen in the near term? You know, when we look at this particular issue, you know, it's getting on now a year, I believe, since we came back, or since it came back to council, and we made a decision to consider reopening the road. And some of the little, you know, side discussions I'm hearing on the street are, why don't we just close it permanently? You know, it's been just sitting forever, and you know, now, you know, nothing's happening. So I realize that, you know, we probably didn't have the room in our budget last year to move forward on it. However, you know, this is the type of thing that we get, you know, the tough marks on us, you know, in the residents' eyes is, you know, yeah, you know, you went ahead and made the decision and then nothing for, you know, now a year. So my question is, where are we at? And what can we expect to happen over the next 6 months?
Director Graham.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. Well, currently, we've just closed a request for proposal, so we're hiring an engineering firm to do a design to look at economical solutions, options, and how we can reopen this road. So what's going to happen in the next 6 months is we're going to have that project underway to come up with, we're not just going to look at it with one option and say, let's look at very expensive retaining walls or retaining structures. So we are going to look at different options to try and control costs, but our objective is to bring council back options on how you can reopen that road. Probably next term, when you actually are going to be making decisions on any form of construction and what the timing of that looks like. But what I can assure you that we're going to have a plan in place for you to consider in terms of the next steps.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the director, do you think that we will be in a position to have PICs before the election? This is an item that, has been certainly part of what I felt was important for us to accomplish out in this ward, and not to have any kind of physical result coming back to us prior to the election, prior to October, let's just put it that way, is disappointing.
Dr. Graham?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, let me go back with staff and look at that. We might be in a position where we could present something to the public. I don't want to make a promise at this point. I'd like to get back to you on it. But what we could do, we could do some form of communication to the residents in that area as just an overall project update, what we're doing, so they know that it's still underway in terms of looking at how we can reopen it. In terms of design options, and that's really what we're looking at right now. So, it would be at least encouraging for residents that it isn't off the table. We are looking at how we can reopen it. So, we could do something like that.
So just to close this out, so as we sit here today, we still need a RFP approved through the Infrastructure Committee? Or is that all done through you, Mr. Chair?
Through Mr. Chairman. So with some of the changes that council supported on our procurement policy, we don't have to bring that back through committee and lose a month, so to speak. So we are moving forward with hiring a consultant. We've already closed the RFP process. We're just finalizing that now. So we'll be engaging a consultant very shortly to get moving on the project. There's going to be some background investigation work done. We do have to do geotechnical work, so I'm just thinking out loud here, but we probably could do a project notice to residents to let them know that the design is underway, because they're probably going to see surveyors, and we might have like a drill rig down there to do boreholes, so that'll be a good way to communicate to the residents that this project is still much alive.
I think that'd be great. Something like this that we could circulate would be fantastic. Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, one other. So Jordan EA, we're through the appeal process, and we're moving into the detailed design process. So we're now, 2 or 3 months down the road from the appeal process. Is there anything happening to date that you're aware of at the region, and what, again, would we expect to happen over the next 6 months?
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. So what staff's been working on is we've developed in terms of reference an RFP in working with the region. We have an internal working group with community services and planning and public works. So we've got that finalized, and our goal is this Friday is we're going to be issuing that to the market to retain a consulting firm. And then depending on the cost, we may be bringing something back to committee likely July to award that work to get moving on the detailed design. Okay. So that's sort of the next steps that you can anticipate. But we're committed to get the design moving, get that started as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just had one, seeing no other inquiries, I just had one along the same lines as Councillor McPherson, Director Graham, at the TMP that we had a couple months ago at the Fleming Center, the TMP PIC. There were a number of residents there that night, probably 6 to 10, that were out in full force wanting to know what was going on with the Frost Road Bridge, a bridge that's been closed for 16 or 17 years to my knowledge. And I know we've had discussion at this committee that the bridge is in ill repair and needs to be addressed before it falls into the water. But there was a number of discussions that evening, you know, about, okay, what is that going to look like once you take it down and what happens there. So I'm just wondering if you could update committee members on the Frost Road Bridge.
Sure. Through Mr. Chairman, currently we're finalizing a demolition removal plan on how that will be taken down in terms of hiring a contractor to demolish it. So we're currently finalizing that plan in order to get a contractor to do that. In related to the public comments, again, we're looking at that in the TMP. What are we going to put back? There's been a lot of conversations around active transportation for sure, whether we're going to do a pedestrian bridge. We also want to look at, through the TMP process, you know, do we look at a formal bridge replacement? So that is part of the TMP in looking at, you know, what will go back. But in the interim, we still plan on removing the bridge this year. And we'll be keeping those residents informed once we know more on the demolition schedule.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have no notices of motion. Are there any announcements? Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I didn't see our minutes of April's Active Transportation Committee meeting, so I just wanted to get this out there so people are aware of what the committee's been working on. We didn't, last year when we put in our application for the cycling award, we received an honorable mention. And one of the areas, actually a couple of the areas where we didn't kind of get the marks were on public awareness and was on a cycling event in June. So Councillor Bernay has spearheaded the public awareness at the Bike Summit. Found out that CAA has Share the Road stickers, so town staff has contacted CAA and we'll be having those all emblazoned on our town vehicles. So thank you, Chair Bernay, for doing that. And then on Saturday, June 23rd at 10 a.m., we are having the first Slow Roll Lincoln. So it's going to be taking place in Beamsville, the first one, using our trails, connecting our parks. We're encouraging all modes of transportation, bicycles, tricycles, bikes with training wheels, razor scooters, longboards, rollerblades, baby carriages, you name it. If it's got wheels and wheelchairs, we encourage you to come. We'll be out there. We hopefully all of our fellow councillors will be in this. It's about a 10K ride around the town. We're going to have water stations. We're going to have a little refreshment afterwards, and there's going to be various levels of difficulty. So just wanted to get that out there because we are quite excited about it. The committees all come on board, is taking on tasks. So let's keep our fingers crossed for a great day, and it's going to be fantastical.